think it runs for me so deep, you know. This place has been such an amazing place for me.
Hey coach, how you doing?
I'm great, Micah. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, thank you for coming on today. As first a student athlete, then as assistant coach, coordinator, and now as the head coach of APU football. Can you tell me a little bit about APU football and the history of it and your part in it?
Well, the portion that you didn't mention is I actually had a brother that came here before me, and we're only a year apart. So, you know, the history of APU football with me runs so deep, you know, because with him, that kind of connects me to really that past generation of APU players. I kind of got to see APU before I ever even stepped on campus. And then obviously, you know, having the ability to play a 6-year career at APU, I got to kind of be a part of the early 2000s and kind of coming out of, you know, the Shinnick era to the Santa Cruz era, seeing still pieces, you know, the Shealy era. And so, and then as a coach, kind of transitioning into the late 2000s and kind of where we're at now, the transition to Division II. You know, I played when we were NAIA, and to be able to see the transition to D2. So what I love about the history of APU football is, you know, we've had different coaches, we've had different personalities, you know, we've had some amazing years, we've had some lean years, but the one thing that's remained constant and the same is just the God first mentality. And whether that be through the building champions while pursuing championships, or, you know, different mottos throughout the year with different coaches, the one thing has remained the same, and that's, you know, God honoring excellence in all that we do. And to be able to combine my passion of my faith and football has kind of always been what APU history is. And so I've known, you know, a lot of the players that have come before us, a lot of the alumni that are just incredible people. They do amazing things in their communities. They're business owners, they're firemen, policemen, teachers, you name it. You know, there's people out there just making amazing impact in the world. And the foundation is all APU, and specifically the brotherhood of APU football. And so that's what I love about our rich history, is just the difference makers that this program produces year in and year out. And it's no different from the 1970s, 80s to the early 2000s. I think we attract a certain kind of person, and ultimately we develop an amazing young man. So
you mentioned, you know, of course you spent your time there from 2000 to 2002 to 2007, and of course you played quarterback. And in your senior season in 2007, you threw for 2,605 yards and 28 TD passes. Do you have a particular moment in your career as a quarterback for APU as just kind of like, this was a great moment in history?
Well, I mean, first off, I found a way to milk out 6 years of a college career. And so unfortunately that was due to some injury, but I'm so thankful I got those 6 years. But yeah, my senior year was such an amazing and memorable year. And if you remember, 2007 was really a crazy year in college football, because that's the year that Appalachian State beat Michigan. They were up, they block a field goal, they return it. So it was kind of like one of the first times you saw like an FCS level program like beat a premier Power 5 team in the big house at Michigan. And just so it happens, that same year is actually probably one of my, it's bittersweet, but one of my favorite memories as a player. We had the same opportunity. We were NAI at the time, and we're going in to play the number 17th ranked team in the country at the FCS level. So the top 10 team, Appalachian State, had just beat Michigan. Now we had an opportunity to play a team at that same level. You know, they had a number of guys that ended up getting drafted that year. You know, one of them was Ladarius Webb. He had like a 15-year career with the Ravens. So they had some pretty crazy high-level athletes. They played Rice in Nevada weeks prior to playing us. So the film we were breaking down was Rice in Nevada. They actually beat Rice. So for me, it was like, man, this is an opportunity to prove that we can play at that level, you know. And so the game was kind of shaky at first, and, you know, we kind of weathered the storm and took our fair share of the punches. And first half wasn't great, but we came out in the second half. We scored 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I ended up throwing a touchdown pass with 1:07 to go up by 2. And it was against Nicholls State. It's in Thibodaux, Louisiana. It's like 95 degrees. It's like 100% humidity. The atmosphere is amazing. It's like nothing we'd ever experienced. And I'm thinking, Nicholls State's a triple option team. They don't even have a quarterback that can throw the football over 40 yards. They get the ball on the -20 with less than a minute. I'm like, man, we are set. This game's in the bag. This is going to be the biggest win in Cougar football history. It's the same year that you see the upset with Michigan, and the stage is all set. And I just remember sitting on the sideline just watching and hoping and praying, and the anticipation and the high you feel at that moment. And then unfortunately we get 2 penalties. They end up kicking like a 40-some yard field goal, I think like a 48-yard field goal, and beat us by 1 point with the clock expiring. And so that's where it's kind of bittersweet. But for me personally, and then just even as a program, it was kind of like, man, we can play at that level. And we were so close to just having that like signature win of like the biggest win in school history. And so kind of a funny thing to remember, but that was probably my most memorable moment as a player.
Yeah. And then you, of course, in 2010, you were named offensive coordinator. And then it lasted long till last year, until 2019. And then now you're the head coach. But as your time as a coordinator, what was your, another moment in history that you're like, this is, great for APU football?
Yeah, that year was crazy, 2010. I mean, I actually called plays the last 2 games of 2009. So I wasn't the OC, but called the plays. And so there was just all this anticipation. And then I ended up officially getting the job in January of 2010. And, we had come off a couple of lean years. And, we were opening up with University of San Diego down at their place, which is an amazing place to play. And there's kind of been like, at least there used to be a rivalry, and APU and USD had kind of always been back and forth. And then during the Harbaugh days, they were getting guys and kind of playing at a whole different level. And so we had kind of been taking a beating a little bit to USD in the last couple of years. And so there's just a lot of anticipation. We had a super young staff. I think I was 25 years old, and we were kind of ready to like turn the corner as a program. And I just remember the first play of the game, they get the ball, they get a good return, and they throw like a 60-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. And we're all kind of like, oh boy, here we go. But our guys didn't flinch. They kind of just kept believing. And, we ended up winning the game, I think 42-21 in a pretty dominant fashion. And I remember we had the game so much in control that I came down from the box to the sideline. And just like the feeling of the players and the coaches, and kind of just that like, man, we're turning the corner. There's something special that's happening here. We're not going back to how, maybe the lean years had kind of made us feel. And so that was a really special moment for me. We ended up having an amazing year in 2010. And so that was one of the first ones that came to mind. The second is the Grand Valley State win. I think it was either 2014 or 2015. And, we had gone to their place, I think either the year prior or 2 years prior, and we didn't belong on the same field. And, they beat us up pretty good. They beat us by a couple scores. And then I think it was either the next year or the year after, they were number 2 in the country and, a favorite to make a run for a national championship. And, we had made the transition to Division II, but we're kind of trying to figure it out. And anyways, it was on CBS. It was on live TV. We ended up winning a tight game in double overtime. And just to see the fan support and just the heart of our guys, and then obviously to beat a storied program like Grand Valley State that's been a D2 powerhouse for so long, was just such a like monumental moment. And so kind of to see the program like make the transition to Division II, to kind of turn the corner in 2010, and then in 2000 and I think it was either 14 or 15 when we beat Grand Valley, I think was just really cool for me to see just the progression of the program.
And then kind of closing statements here for you and kind of this whole idea of history of APU sports and just what APU athletics in general and APU football means to you as a coach and as a player and as an alumni.
Yeah, I think it runs for me so deep, you know. This place has been such an amazing place for me, and been so critical in my development as a young man and as a young professional. And then even now having the opportunity to take it over. You know, I've been here for 18 years. You know, I was born and raised in Colorado and spent 18 years there. And so this place is as much of a part of my story as, you know, where I was born and raised. And I kind of really see it that way. You know, I think college is a very unique time where you kind of become a man. And I think for me, that's what this place was. And just the support that you get from coaches and mentors and peers, for me, was just so critical and a pivotal time in my life. And so I've always found such a deep love for the transformational power of this place, and that's what's made me ultimately not want to ever leave, you know. And so when you ask what APU means to me, I mean, it's everything, you know, for me personally and professionally. Um, and when I think about it, the countless stories of young men's lives that have been transformed by the power of the gospel through the vehicle of football is an amazing thing. And I think, you know, APU does it incredibly. And you know, Dr. Ferguson, our president, talks about us being the premier Christian university for our culture and times. And for me, athletics is just an extension of that. Like, for faith-infused football, there's not a better place in the country than APU. And so for me, APU is just such an incredible, unique place. And I'm so excited for the future. And, you know, being away from football for, almost a year now, just kind of makes me even more and more eager to get back at it and to continue to build this program on the amazing foundation that it's on.
Yeah, we're just excited to see now as you as a head coach are blasting off into the future, and the future looks bright.
Yeah, Micah, I appreciate your time. Now it's your turn and your generation to go get that signature win and not have to tell a bittersweet story.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Micah.
Thank you so much, Coach.